Good morning. Sorry we're a little late. We had a little discussion with the chair. Do we have any speakers today?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. We have 6 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware of the clock in the front of the room and the warning light you will see reminding you that you have 30 seconds left to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be Murray Bowden. Following will be Charlton D'Souza, followed by Jason Anthony.
Well, good morning. Just how much has the world changed? I am now here in an electric wheelchair because I can't go great distances. And even with a wheelchair I had before, I couldn't propel myself. I just don't have the strength. See my nice new shirt? It's a pajama shirt. It's got big buttons. And it's that tuck on the side, so you don't know it's a pajama shirt. Oh, and my glasses. When I skied, I always wore yellow goggles because it increased the contrast. I just had these glasses made with yellow. Kathy, I need your help. I'd like you to arrange a meeting with Joe Keane and his team to go over the manual and uniform traffic control devices and see which parts of it we can use to make the roads safer. With these automatic cars that are computing and watching for people on the roads and driving by themselves, it uses less computer power if it's yellow on the left all the time and white on the right. And that confusion comes from 50 years ago, and actually 100 years ago, when Robert Moses did the first lines on a road. So I'd like to meet with Joe and his team to see what can be done to make the road safer and more consistent. You have this timer here where I'm supposed to follow the time. And my standard statement is, when you all follow the rules, I'll follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, I don't see why I should or anybody else. This is a new world. It's called global warming or global change, less resources. It's not going to affect me. It's going to affect my grandchildren. That's who yes, I can hear it. I'm not deaf.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. The next speaker is Jason Anthony. I'm sorry, the next speaker is Charlton D'Souza, followed by Jason Anthony.
Everyone, Charlton D'Souza, president of Passengers United. And we're going to talk about congestion pricing because, there's been no new bus routes developed, express bus routes on the Long Island Expressway going into Manhattan with bus lanes. And, what's going to happen in the subways? Where are all these people going to go? Because the subways cannot handle everyone. There's delays every day. And these are the brand new signal systems, CBTC, Communication Network Error, that's causing all the delays on the newer lines with the newer signals. So congestion pricing will not work, especially for Southeast Queens, especially for Northern Queens, parts of the South Bronx, North Bronx, Staten Island. We're not being considered. We're transit deserts. And, we're going to need very deep discounts on the Long Island Railroad for like $2.75, $3.75. If you want congestion pricing to work, you're going to have to open up seats on the railroad and Metro North. And express bus fares are going to have to be $3 or $4 to get people to use the system. Otherwise, it's not going to work if you're going to implement this congestion pricing plan. I served on the Environmental Committee for Congestion Pricing, and we were asking them our concerns about the bus issues, new bus routes. I'm not even talking about the bus redesigns. I'm talking about specially geared rapid transit bus routes. Nothing. We didn't hear anything from the MTA. So I am not convinced, and we do not support congestion pricing. We only support it on the East River tolls and bridges. That's it. But not from 60th Street and below, because it's not going to work. You cannot tell people they cannot go below 60th Street to see their doctor or, for medical or just to work. It's not fair to them. And for the cabs to have a free for all, the cab's only paying once a day. That's not fair. All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Jason Anthony, followed by Iris Kelly.
Good morning, David, and good morning to the Bridges and Towns Committee. Let's talk about congestion pricing, because we are seeing our fellow elected officials from the Garden State saying no to congestion pricing. And that for me is a slap on the face, because they don't know the consequences that their opposition will have to the entire Northeast region, starting from all the way north in Boston and going as south as Washington, D.C., and having our region as the artery. Congestion pricing needs to go into effect ASAP, because if not, it will be so, let's say, tragic to see more traffic along the Cross Bronx Expressway that I used to see when I was a kid through my window at the Bronx River houses. And if they don't keep supporting congestion pricing, we'll have to tell New Jersey Transit Corporation that we're going to ban their equipment in the Sunnyside Yard. And regarding the RFK Bridge, why we don't see a HOV lane going to Queens? Because there's so much traffic going into Queens, even to LaGuardia Airport. So let's get things done, and let's see if we have luck on this one. So I'll yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Iris Kelly, followed by Alita Dupree.
The Long Island Railroad. They have big issues there. 11 and 12 does not serve us well for Brooklyn. Doesn't do anything for us. That happens more for Manhattan. But now for we should have our own Long Island train stations back into Atlantic Terminal like we did before, where we can go out to Long Island. We'll have to have them change this often. And then for that, also have those trains come back to us, not into Penn Station or Grand Central. And then for to do what your schedule did not like, you leapfrogged my train for Saturday. The 443 in Hempstead, you're supposed to go into Jamaica and then switch there for the 503 Huntington. But no, since the schedule, you switched it. Where Huntington came in first and then Hempstead came right behind. And I had to wait an extra half an hour just to get where I had to go in Huntington. Instead of being there 5:50, I had to be there 6:22 now. And that's the wrong time for me. Then also the fact that it's just the way the service is set up now. It's not the way it should be. You know, it was always easy to come in and out of connections, like right behind each other or right across from each other in a few amount of times. Very easy to get around. And then now, of course, accessoride problems is that I used to leave my house 6:30, get in 7:15. Now I'm going to a different location, half an hour, not too far from my house. And then now, I was supposed to get to work by before 8. I'm going to get only 7 o'clock. But when I was maybe ran late at my home address, 7 o'clock, get me in by 8 o'clock. Now I'm going to a place close, not too far from my house, but I'm going to need this trip at 7 o'clock, get me here at 7:45. That's the reason why they can't do it. They're dragging around 2.5 hours just to get a ride back into work. Pick 7 o'clock again by 9:30, that's not good. That's not good for my record at work. They need to change this, somehow fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Alita Dupree, followed by Jack Nierenberg.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Mack. Alita Dupree for the record, she and her. Good to be with you. Good to talk about bridge and tunnel basics. I've been thinking a lot about congestion pricing. My resume on these systems goes back to 1970. And I remember when the Queens Midtown Tunnel toll was 25 cents. That went up in 1972. And I asked myself, sometimes we're going through the tunnel and paying, and sometimes we're going over the Queensboro Bridge and we're not. And even then at that age, I thought to myself, what's making people pay to use the tunnel and not the bridge? And so I'm thinking about congestion pricing, and that costs a lot to maintain a transportation system in New York City. And I think that congestion pricing is long overdue. And I did get to see some charts somewhere that detail what the toll equipment's going to look like. Some kind of drawings that I saw in the reports, but it's long overdue. So I asked myself, why aren't we charging tolls on all the bridges? Growing up, the railroad was what we used for commuting, but I wondered why we didn't use it on the weekends. Because I guess we didn't have the incentive to use the railroad on the weekends. I maintain this to you at 57, that when I come to New York soon, I hope, I'm going to use the subway and the buses. And so congestion pricing will help me to have the best subway and bus system we can have. I hope we do it soon. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jack Nierenberg.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Jack Nierenberg. I'm the Vice President of Passengers United, and I invite everyone to write these numbers down. 1, 8, 10, 11, and 13. These are all of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that congestion pricing will work against. Listen, everyone's talking about the fact that congestion pricing will bring in cleaner air. No, it will not, only in the congestion pricing zone. Studies have shown that pollution actually increases in the perimeter. Same thing, and the fact that there's a lack of additional transit options makes it much harder for those in the, especially in the outer boroughs, in transit deserts, and in lower income demographic groups to actually get into central Manhattan. And studies have shown from London, for example, where the poorest 20% have actually, trips to the central city have actually decreased, and has disproportionately affected those in the poor demographic groups in favor of the richest. So not only is this not equitable, it is also not sustainable. And the environmental assessment admits that nitrogen oxide levels, carbon monoxide levels, and particulate matter levels will increase in the Bronx, Staten Island, Long Island, Putnam County, and New Jersey, as well as Rockland, and Long Island. I mentioned Long Island. So, and the environmental assessment also does not mention the individual zip codes. So, while it might be an overall decrease as it shows, it does not show anything about what happens in these individual zip codes. So, I'm not going to be lectured about sustainability from anyone here, because I've studied sustainability. So I'm just warning everyone that this is not acceptable. There's already legal action going on. There's going to be more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes the public comment.
Thank you. I'd like to get approval of the minutes from last meeting. Well, any questions on it? Okay, a vote. Everyone in favor? Fine. Okay, thank you. Brett and Sheraton?
Chair Mack, there are no changes to the committee work plan.
Thank you. Okay.
So I'll go on with my remarks.
Yes,
Great.
please.
Good morning. The TD 5-borough bike tour held on Sunday, May 7th, drew nearly 30,000 cyclists who ultimately crossed the Verrazano Narrows Bridge into Staten Island at the end of their 40-mile journey through New York City. It's the type of public event which brings New Yorkers together, and we're pleased to participate in its success. I'd like to commend our maintenance and operations personnel and the many other B&T employees involved in preparation and on-site management for the safety and security of participants. The bike tour is one of the larger events which touch down on B&T facilities. This and other high-profile events, like the New York City Marathon, require substantial time and effort on our part. Largely behind the scenes, as you'll learn more about shortly in a presentation by our department leaders. B&T expertly handles these major events, but also works closely with some smaller local events. This past Saturday, I was pleased to spend some time with B&T maintainers and our fleet operations team on Randall's Island for the Randall's Island Park Alliance's annual Big Truck Day. Visitors, including children and adults, braved the rain and toured the many working vehicles from different agencies and learned about their functions and features. Chief among the crowd pleasers were our vac truck and tunnel washing truck, both impressive to see and learn about. Thanks to our maintenance and fleet teams for making the day special. Finally, with Mother's Day just passed and the Memorial Day weekend ahead, this traditionally signals our busy summer travel season. It is especially satisfying that B&T's crossings served as a means of linking family and friends across the 5 boroughs and beyond, as evidenced by the uptick in crossings over the Mother's Day weekend. While travel patterns can vary and evolve with each season, I'm confident our field personnel are engaged and prepared, closely monitoring traffic conditions and ongoing construction projects at our facilities to ensure a safe and smooth crossing for our customers. As I mentioned last month, going forward, we are turning attention to various efforts our B&T leaders and staff are engaged in, rather than the operations and safety data which reported on in the past. Our traditional reports are still included in your committee books, and our department heads are here to answer any questions you may have. Now I'll turn it over to Vice President and Chief of Operations, Rich Hildebrand, to begin our presentation regarding B&T's coordinated approach to large public events.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. As President Sheridan mentioned earlier, the first Sunday in May brings the New York City permitted TD Bank 5-Borough Bike Tour to our service area. This year was no different with the 45th iteration of the event. Cyclists began their journey in Lower Manhattan, pedaling through the streets of 4 of the 5 boroughs of New York City before finally crossing the lower level of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which was closed to motorists, toward the finish line in Fort Wadsworth on Staten Island. Months in advance, B&T's Emergency Management and Planning section began working in coordination with Bike New York, the event organizer, and various New York City agencies to develop plans to ensure a safe, secure, and a fun event for all involved. The planning period resulted in a comprehensive event action plan detailing the operation to take place at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. The objectives were to ensure effective customer messaging regarding facility closures, that the bridge was rendered safe and secure for event participants, and that the traffic was restored efficiently upon completion of event operations. 2 days prior to the event, all B&T departments met to perform a final walkthrough of the facility. And now to speak on this planning process is Charlie Passarella, Vice President of Maintenance and Operations Support.
Thank you, Rich. Good morning, everyone. Prior to any outside special event that impacts bridge and tunnel facilities, a joint assessment team representing maintenance, operations, internal security, and safety and health gathered for a walkthrough. The team conducted a security and safety check, inspected perimeter integrity, contractor work areas, and roadway modifications. A readiness drill was also performed to test critical systems and protocols for event day operations to ensure the return to normal operations would go smoothly. Readiness of life-saving equipment such as the automatic external defibrillator, or AED, is also critical should there be a cardiac emergency during an event. As a part of our walkthrough, this on-site equipment was checked and readied for use. Next came the job of converting the lower level from a vehicular crossing into the final 2 miles of the 5-borough bike tour. Bridge and tunnel maintenance crews began to implement the closure of the lower level from all access points. Once the roadway was closed, crews cleaned all areas to be used by cyclists. Roadway sweepers passed over approach ramps, bridge roadways, and the path into Fort Wadsworth to remove debris and other materials that could present a hazard to event participants. As night turned to morning, the maintainers began the labor-intensive task of covering the finger joints at both bridge towers. Heavy rubber matting was laid over the joints to prevent bicycle wheels from falling through gaps that would otherwise not pose a risk during the crossing of a car, truck, or motorcycle. These mats were secured to the roadway and monitored by our crews throughout the event. Next was the barrier placement required to safely contain and route event participants, followed by the deployment of event timing, mats, and directional signage by New York officials under escort of bridge and tunnel employees. To discuss event operations, I'll now turn it back over to Rich.
And thank you, Charlie. Operations couldn't do it without the cooperation of all B&T departments, so we say thank you on behalf of every operations employee. First, the ramp from the RFK Bridge to the southbound FDR Drive was closed as lead cyclists approached that location. Once a tour entered the Gowanus Expressway in Brooklyn, traffic exiting the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel was routed via Hamilton Avenue at an off-property diversion point. And finally, the closure of the entire Gowanus Expressway by NYPD prevented all vehicular traffic from accessing the Staten Island-bound upper and lower levels of the Verrazano. The Staten Island-bound upper level of the bridge remained open to traffic from the Belt Parkway and the local streets of Bay Ridge and Brooklyn. Here you see our National Guard partners assisting with the closure. B&T awaited the NYPD Highway District lead escort with the first of the cyclists. And it was now time for the cyclists to make the tough climb to mid-span and then the smooth descent onto Staten Island. Throughout the event, uniformed bridge and tunnel personnel were posted strategically around the facility to ensure the safety and security of cyclists during their crossings. Our officers routinely respond to many different types of incidents and emergencies, rendering aid and assistance as needed. And as the afternoon progressed, the stream of cyclists began to diminish until the last participant crossed the bridge. After the operations portion of the event concluded, a shift was now made to restore traffic on the bridge to its normal state. And now Charlie will once again discuss the closeout.
Thanks, Rich. For demobilization, our crews had already begun preparing the lower-level roadway for reopening as the last vehicle in the event convoy passed key locations. Ramps were checked, temporary protections were removed, and the large mats covering roadway joints were dismantled. Event materials such as directional signage and timing mats were also removed. The roadways were checked for debris, and a final security sweep was done. The reopening of all roadways was coordinated with our regional partners through the Event Operations Center and Transcom to ensure that all property connecting roadways were also ready to receive live traffic. The first post-event vehicles were led over by the bridge patrol cars and maintenance tow trucks to ensure a smooth reopening. Planning never ceases, and right after the event, our team was already incorporating lessons learned and best practices for 2024. For the bike tour and for all outside special events, the Bridge and Tunnel team rises to the challenges and looks at all angles and for improvement opportunities. The bottom line is always safety and the timely restoration of our facilities to our customers. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, and thank you for this very detailed description of the operation. So when the Gowanus Expressway was closed to traffic, obviously that meant that traffic was on local streets. Was additional enforcement placed on local streets to make sure that was all going smoothly?
Yes, part of the planning is coordination with the local precincts around the entrance points, especially, I could just speak to what's around the bridge, but I know the 6th precinct, they have their auxiliary out there. They have NYPD officers and supervisors out there, as well as traffic agents to assist flow traffic through, because Bay Ridge, with the closure of the Gowanus, sees an influx of local street traffic there.
So when the Gowanus is closed, was there an increase in traffic on the Belt Parkway then?
The two are not, because of the direction of the Belt Parkway coming through South Brooklyn, as opposed to the Gowanus coming over the top of, north side of Brooklyn. It's a little bit of a shift, but we do see, as the day goes on, traffic does build up on the Belt Parkway as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, as always. It's similar to what you do for the marathon.
Very much so, yes.
You did a great job. So here's the question. Who pays for all this? Is the MTA responsible? Do we get reimbursed from the city, or?
We do get reimbursed for the additional staff time. So any overtime that's paid, we do get reimbursed for.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen, for the informative presentation. Finally, there are no procurements this month, and if there are no further questions, this concludes B&T's report.
Thank you. There's no questions, and thank you, Chair Sheraton, President. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you all. Have a great Memorial Day.